Hello and welcome to another video that is going to get you the top grades. Today I'm going to teach you these 7 things. What is holding you back in your writing? It's something that you've probably never thought about, and I'm going to show you what it is and how to overcome it. To do that, I'm going to tell you a fascinating fact about learning to swim and learning to drive. It really is fascinating for me, and bizarrely this will help you to become a better writer. I'm going to show you a picture, because that's what you get in the exam. And then I'm going to show you how, from that picture, you can write either a story or a description at the same time. It's really an amazing technique. Then I'm going to teach you the hardest thing it is to learn, and that is how to think like an expert. And the way that I'm going to do that is talk you through, as I show you my writing, what's going on inside my head. And that will really open up to you the possibilities of how to get brilliant at writing. I don't want to be immodest there, but we're talking about GCSE exams, and in GCSE terms, you can be brilliant. Then I'm going to do something which you might think is bizarre, but I think is crucial. I'm going to show you how to have fun in the exam as you're writing, and I really do mean that. It is fun, and that's not just because I'm an English teacher. I'm going to show you how to make it fun for yourself, and you're going to practice this at home, and then you're going to post me comments saying, Mr. Salles, that was genius. And then obviously I want to show you a brilliant description or story which will get you full marks. But remember, if you can't punctuate, you won't get those full marks, but that's for a different video. So here is the boring picture that was typical of an exam paper, and it was used in the specimen papers. I made a 9-minute video on it about how to describe. It's had 12,000 odd views, and one viewer called Ill said, Mr. Salles teaches English, how the hell can I link a school fight to that pic? And so that was my starting point. I decided to answer Ill's question. And it's a brilliant question because Ill is doing the thing that happens in everybody's head. And it's that voice in your head which just says, no, that is a terrible idea. No, I don't think I can do that. No, that won't work. No, the examiner won't like it. And that voice that's saying no, is the single most important thing that's holding you back as a writer. And when you want to write well, you have to learn to dial down that voice, because we've all got it. There's nothing wrong with Ill other than he or she is listening to that voice. And so I'm going to tell you how I turn that voice down and silence it a bit while I write. So I know I've got to write about a fight, because that was in Ill's question. And all I'm going to do is just start to free associate, just let my mind make connections with this picture. The first thing I focus on is the different colours of the houses, and I just think of things that are of different colours, and in my head I get rainbows, and because of rainbow I get the Skittle advert in my head, which was taste the rainbow. Okay, so I'm a victim of advertising, but it doesn't matter, I just let that story come into my head. And the other thing I focus on is the idea of train being on tracks and the waves. And that's all I think about. Now I forget about the picture. I don't even look at it again. And I'm serious about that. I'm not really interested in the picture now. It's just a springboard for me to start writing. Because once I start writing, the voice in my head that says no has to shut up. And so I just start writing no matter what. I was minding my own business, staring blankly into space. Well, the first thoughts I'm having as I'm sitting there is, oh, Christ, I don't know what I'm going to write. And so that's what I put into my writing. Yeah, like I'm in the exam, I'm staring blankly into space. So I put that into my writing just to start me writing and stop me listening to the voice that says no. Munching on my mid-morning Skittles. Well, I thought of mid-morning because that's the time that I'm writing, and you've realised why I was thinking about Skittles. I've already told you. Wondering how many I could eat before I felt sick. Well, because Skittles do make me feel sick, so I just stuck that in my writing. I'm just going with every idea that's in my head and not saying no. And then I started to wonder if the red ones were better than the yellow ones, which is the sort of dumb thing I do when I'm bored. And they remind me of parasols on a beachfront, and my mind was suddenly transported into sunshine at the seaside when. So Now what I've done is I've got the picture back in my mind. I've remembered that it's on the coast, and I'm trying to link what I've written about Skittles. God, Mr. Salles, how can I link what I've written about Skittles to the coast? Oh yeah, the Skittles are colourful. What else is colourful on the coast? Yeah, those umbrellas. I remember that they're called parasols. They're on the beach. All right, okay, I'll just put that in. And then I've done what all good writers do when they're stuck. You introduce somebody with a gun. Now, I don't mean that literally. I mean, you introduce a dramatic moment that's suddenly going to interrupt what you've written. And I knew I had a dramatic incident because Il told me I had to write about a fight. So I know a fight is going to develop while my character is chewing away on Skittles and wondering which one tastes best. Okay, I don't know what that fight's going to be about, and I don't know who's going to start the fight, but I don't listen to the voice that says no. I just go with the first thing that comes into my mind. Okay, well, the first thing I think of is a name, Noah. How did I get that? Well, because the picture had these waves on the shore like a flood. And if you know the most famous flood, you also know Noah, who survived the flood. So he just came into my head. Noah chugged up towards me. And where did I get the word chugged from? Because I had to think of a good verb, and I thought of the train. I thought, I know, if I keep as many words to do with the train or the coastline as possible, it will just help me write. Not because the examiner wants me to use these words and use the picture, but just because it stops me having to think too hard. I'm just going to have ideas that come from the picture. So Noah chugged up towards me, shrieking something about his girlfriend. Spit flying from his mouth in waves. Yeah, you can see how I've just used the waves that were in the picture. Slow motion droplets firing my way like pellets. So I looked at the picture and it had frozen the waves. That's where I got the slow motion from, and I just wanted to describe it in some way that was threatening. And so I thought, well, pellets like from a shotgun, that's pretty threatening, and that fits my theme of a fight. Now I don't know what the hell to write about, so I go back to my Skittles again. Yellow Skittles, said the dumb part of my brain. And this is me saying, Mr. Salles, this is dumb to write in an exam, but because I can't listen to the voice that says no, I just have to write it, yeah? So yellow Skittles, said the dumb part of my brain, as Noah strained, and so now I'm getting back to Noah again, and I'm realising I'm using a word like I could use to describe a train going up a train track, going up a hill maybe. It's straining. And I noticed his right shoulder jerk, which could only mean that his right hand was on a train track. Okay, and I wanted to show that the hand was on a course to hit him, and I thought, how can I link that to a train? Oh yeah, it's on tracks. It was on a train track. It's steel rails pointing to my head. And I'm really happy with that bit now. I've got myself back on course with the fight. Do I go back and cross out the bit about the yellow Skittles? No, I don't, because that's a no, okay? At the end, when I've written the whole story, if it doesn't work, I'll get rid of that line. But at the minute, everything has the potential to work. And it will work because I've now suddenly got this idea of describing different parts of my character's mind. And I hadn't thought of that when I started writing, but that gives me some more opportunities to write some interesting ideas, because I can have different ideas going on in my character's head at the same time. And so that gives me more things to write about and the opportunity maybe to have some humour. So back to the fight. Another part of my brain said duck. And then the part that is the class clown pointed out that it was nice weather for ducks, which was A, true, but B, very unhelpful, because Noah's fist sped further along its track, intending to use my right cheek as a buffer. So what you can see there is I've just decided to have a laugh. I've got this word duck, and then that tired old joke, nice weather for ducks, because that's linked to the weather in the picture. It was raining. And also he is ducking, and I've got that different part of the brain which just allows me to fiddle about with what's inside his head and not have to say no. Then it gives me a way into going back to the fist, which is the fight. I keep with the idea of it being on a train track because that was working for me, and then I think, okay, well, when it hits, how's that going to be like a train? I could have had the train crashing, but luckily I got this word which I know, the buffer, which is those two metal circles that are at the end of a train track, if you've ever looked at them, that stops the train from ploughing through the concrete if it ever gets into the station too fast. Okay, well now I've got my main character who's just about to get beaten up by Noah, and well, I don't want my main character just to lose this fight, so I introduce another bit of the brain that actually might know how to fight. At the minute he's a bit of a wally who stands around eating Skittles and wonder which colour is better. So here we go. Obviously, the cooler part of my brain, the mixed martial art aficionado part, registered that I was about to get my ticket punched. So obviously I kept on ducking. So here what's going through my head is mixed martial arts. My son is a jiu-jitsu fanatic. I know that fanatic is a aficionado means someone who's a real fan of something, so I just know how to use that word. But I could just have had fan. And now I know that he's going to have some way of fighting back. Unfortunately, as you've seen by now, this wasn't the most active part of my brain, and so, like Southwest trains, it had arrived a little late. And bam, there it was. Fist, face, fiddlesticks. So here I'm just having fun. You're obviously expecting the F word here, and the reader is expecting the F word, and then it's quite funny not to give it to them. It's a different F word. That's just me having fun because I can't swear in the exam. I'm having another little joke here. If you follow the news, the worst train company in the country has been Southwest Trains. There have been cancellations for months, and I just happen to know that and I chuck it in. It doesn't matter though if my reader doesn't know that. They just know that this must be a company that has very late trains, and they enjoy the fact that I'm still keeping this train metaphor going through my writing. Okay, I don't really know what to write next, but I know I'm going to describe the face, okay? So I just force myself to describe it. My face in slow motion probably looked like this. Now, I put in the slow motion part because that was an idea I had earlier looking at the photograph, which is like a freeze frame, remember? And another thing that I noticed earlier is I had option A and option B. I'd never thought of that before, but I used it and I've just remembered using it, and I thought actually I like the idea of having more than one thing going on at the same time. Instead of calling them A and B, I'm going to call them 1 and 2. Raised eyebrows, because no one called Noah ought to be able to get the better of me, but there I was, wrong again. So I'm just making fun of the word Noah, which, you know, I've got to this part in my story and thought, that's a pretty dumb name, isn't it? I just chose it because it reminded me of the flood. And so I make fun of my own idea. Shut eyes, tight as a miser's you-know-what, because we all shut our eyes when the pain's coming, hoping it will not see us, like a toddler playing hide and seek. And so what came into my mind there? Well, I've been reading A Christmas Carol, making some YouTube videos on it, and you know that Scrooge in it is a miser, and then I've thought about him having a really tight fist, but obviously I'm a boy, and so I have this idea of not just a tight fist, but the expression of somebody being a tight arse. But, oh God, I can't write tight arse in the exam, but I'm still going to be going with that idea in the exam. And so I call it the tight as a miser's you-know-what, and I let the reader put the word arse in there because they realise I can't do it. So I haven't actually said no to arse there. I've just found a different way of writing it that's going to be acceptable in the exam. Okay, then I find I'm quite having fun with this method of the 1-2, and I think, well, can I extend that? Can I have 3 and 4? An explosion of lips as skittles scatter like cannon shot from the right cheek to freedom, and all the colours of the rainbow release to delight whoever was lucky enough to be watching. Well, you remember that I had released the colours of the rainbow as my first thought as I was looking at the different coloured houses, and now I've got it in at last. I've also got, well, where did I get the cannon shot from? Well, I've been writing about one of the poems that you've probably studied, The Charge of the Light Brigade, with that line, cannon to left of them, cannon to right of them, cannon behind them. And so I just had cannons in my mind. Okay, well, I'll stick it in my writing because I don't say no. I just go with whatever my brain is thinking of. Red. The red of bare knuckles smashing cheekbone. The red of blood stinging where my teeth met the soft fleshy inside of my cheek. The red of rage as the cooler part of my brain said, "Fiddlesticks, what are you, a minstrel?" So here I've got red, and I'm just trying to find different ways to think of red. And again, whatever comes into my head, I write about. It's blood, I'll write about blood. It's rage, I'll write about rage. And then I go back to that fighting part of my brain, which I'd earlier called cooler, and I had that joke which I'd enjoyed instead of using the F word, saying fiddlesticks. And then I remembered the scene in Romeo and Juliet, which, if you haven't read it, has got this scene where a character called Mercutio is challenged to a fight by Tybalt. So you can see why I've thought of it, because of Tybalt. And Minstrel also talks about Tybalt fiddling with his stick, meaning his sword, but it's also a bit of a rude joke. And he also has the line, "Dost thou make minstrels of us? Are you turning us into singers?" If you've seen the film with Baz Luhrmann, there's that is a provocation towards a fight. And in my mind, I've gone from my Skittles to those other sweets in a packet, minstrels. And so you can see all I've done is just let my mind think of other ideas that it associates with what I'm already writing. And then I just put them in somehow. And I do that because I'm not saying no, I'm just trying to have fun with my writing. I'm trusting it all to work out at the end. And if it doesn't all work out at the end, it doesn't matter, because I'll be able to change bits. And this is another way for me to make fun of my character. You know, he's in the middle of a fight, but he doesn't dare swear. Now, I can't expect you to have read Romeo and Juliet, but I can expect my reader to be familiar with the characters of Romeo and Juliet. And so I'm going to stick Mercutio in my writing. The examiner will certainly know who he is. So I opened my eyes, wondering if Mercutio had really taken over the MMA part of my brain, but simultaneously twisting with the force of the blow. Spin right. Extend right arm to its full length, as the longer pivot drives with greater force. So I'm just chucking in some science knowledge that I know here to try and describe the action. My science might be wrong, by the way, but I don't care. I'm just chucking it in because it gives me a different way of describing the fight itself, again in slow motion. Drive it along its track by planting right foot, the jolt of its brake flinging power back into the spin, and the iron rails riding the curve to where Noah's head must be. Hit the buffer. And so I go back to my train track language that I've used before. I'm not having to invent much that's new. I've got this idea of the foot stopping his motion, and I've just linked that to a brake like you'd get on a train. And the word drive also links to a train. But it also links to cars, doesn't it? But however, it doesn't matter. It's the first thing that comes into my head. I'm associating it with the train. It will work with my other references. I just trust it to work, and I just write what comes in my mind. Okay, I don't know what to write next, but I don't listen to the voice that says no. I just think about, what did I last enjoy writing? Oh yeah, I had that list, which I thought was quite amusing for myself. Yeah, I don't care about the examiner at this stage. I'm writing for my own pleasure. Okay, so I'm just going to carry on with the list. Noah's brain probably went like this. Got you. Taste my bloody vengeance. Oh look, a skittle rainbow. How beautiful. Well, that works for me. I like a bit of humour, and it refers back to what went on before. Hopefully it will amuse my reader. Ow! Now it's getting quite cartoon-like. I like that, and so I'm going to go back to the F word. Oh, F. Obviously, I can't swear, but it's more amusing if the word isn't there. At least it is for me. I'm still having fun. Okay, well now I've got the F word in my mind and the idea of making fun of Noah. So I'm just going to do that for a paragraph. I don't know if Noah knows the word fiddlesticks, but we never got the chance to find out, because the back of, that should be your head, not you, the back of your head isn't just on the rail journey, it is the HQ, the nexus where all the train lines interlink, and nerdy types with spectacles watch the flashing lights on computer screens, make sure that the trains pulsing along each track don't meet. So here I've decided that this is going to be a knockout blow where I hit Noah, my narrator hits Noah on the back of the head. And so I just have to find something rail related which would show that this was much worse than crashing into a station. Well, what could be worse? Oh, I know. Whatever organisation it is that runs all the train lines. I don't know what that's called, so I'm just going to call it headquarters, HQ. And I happen to know the word nexus because that means a central connection. And I also know that we describe the brain as having a nexus. So you don't have to know that, but that's why I got that word in there. And then I've explained it where all the train lines interlink, because it could be my reader doesn't know what a nexus is. And this will show how he's going to become unconscious when all those links are scrambled by my punch. And then I'm just having fun describing what the inside of someone's brain might be if it were a railway HQ. So I imagine flashing lights. I imagine intelligent types in the brain, so I've just given them spectacles. Yeah, it's stereotypical, but I'm just having fun. Why would there be lights? Oh, I know, I'll put them on computer screens, and then I'm going to have some kind of giant map where the trains are lights on the screen. I'm just going to describe them as pulsing along, and pulsing also gives me the idea of the lights flashing on and off, which I got from the idea about Noah, whose lights are just about to be punched out. And when I get this idea of lights being punched out, I think, right, okay, I know that phrase, which is violent. It means that you become unconscious. I'm going to use it in my next paragraph. Noah's HQ had had a complete power cut and all the lights went out. So there's my idea about the lights being punched out. How would this work in an HQ? You wouldn't punch an HQ. Oh, I know. I'll give it a power cut. And I'm just not saying no to anything. I'm just running with it. I looked to see his girlfriend Estella, so this was quite difficult. So I thought I'd end it here, okay? And in fact, that was my final line. But I thought, well, all right, Mr. Salles, you've got this fight, but what the hell were they fighting about? And I remembered in the heat of my writing, I'd said they were fighting about a girl. Ooh, what girl do I know? Oh, I know, I've been reading Great Expectations, and the girl in there is called Estella, and she loves watching this fight between Pip and the person who he doesn't know yet, who's going to become his best friend, Herbert. Oh, right, okay, well, fight between two boys, watched by a girl. Estella comes into my head because that's what she did in the novel. Brilliant, I'm going to have that. I looked to see his girlfriend Estella watching me with a half smile. She opened up a packet of Skittles and flicked yellow hair from her green eyes. Now, here I'm just describing my mental picture of Estella in the book. And she's full of these flirtatious smiles, trying to get Pip to fancy her. And so this works for my narrator. And once I start thinking about her having yellow blonde hair, I'm reminded of the Skittles. And so I go with the colours again, from her green eyes as she contemplated the choice before her. And this choice is obviously between the two boys, Noah and the narrator. And so she's in control here. But I've got this image of the Skittles, which just doesn't leave my brain. And so this is my narrator's final observation. Safer to pick red next time. Do you remember his favourite Skittles were yellow? Next time he's going to pick red. And I know that refers to not picking this gorgeous blonde Estella as somebody to flirt with, because he's seen what that's led to, this fight. Now, I didn't know that when I started writing, okay? I actually finished my writing here. Yeah, but I just had another opportunity to go back and think, right, how can I finish this off even better? Safer to pick red next time, the smarter part of my brain said. Yeah, so I've gone back to this idea of the different parts of the brain. I've got an ending that works. I'm probably thinking about Smarties here because I've gone from Skittles to Minstrels, but I couldn't actually use the word Smarties there. It wouldn't quite work. So I've just used smarter and left it at that. So there you see it, 629 words, which is probably more than you can write in 45 minutes. This took me less than 45 minutes, but remember, I'm an expert. However, being an expert didn't just make me better at picking things, words to use. Okay, most of the things I've been telling you have been about not listening to the no, turning the no down in your head. And that's what was number one in what I was going to teach you, what's holding you back in your writing. It isn't the choice of words. Actually, what's holding you back is that voice. And I hope by following through what I've just done, you'll see how much fun it can be to practice turning that voice off and just saying yes to every idea that comes in your head. Now, to start with, you're not going to write stories like mine, obviously, yeah, but you're just going to get better and better at it. How many times have I done this in my life? Well, I'd be surprised if I've done it more than 20 times to get to this level of confidence. You know, you'll get a dramatic level of confidence just doing this 5 times. And certainly by the 3rd or 4th time, you will really be enjoying the writing, even if you come up with stories which aren't as good as you like. You're going to get better and better every time, and you'll genuinely enjoy it. Okay, it's now time for the fascinating fact about learning to swim and learning to drive. And this is it. This is really profound. So listen up and be amazed. When you teach swimming, you don't just teach the parts of the stroke to kids. You don't just, have them at the poolside and get them playing with their hands and then their feet and then their knees and breaking everything down into parts. But when your teachers teach you to write, they break everything down into parts. And that encourages you not to think about the story as a whole. But what swimming teachers do to avoid that is they just tell you to swim a width in any way that you can. Just get across and swim it. And what that does to your brain is it stops you saying no. You can't say, oh no, I can't do the front crawl. All you do is go, all right, I've just got to get to the other side. And then you learn different bits of the front crawl as you go to the other side. In other words, with the story writing, you get better at story writing by writing the whole story, not by worrying about how you're going to get there. Okay, that's my metaphor with learning to swim. And it's exactly the same when you learn to drive. The driving instructor doesn't break everything down into tiny little bits. Your driving instructor will teach you just enough to get you moving, and then they take you out on the roads where you could kill people. But you don't, because they trust that you will be able to put everything together gradually as you go. Otherwise, you'd spend, 3 or 4 weeks in the car park just practicing your gears and your braking and your hill starts and what have you. And that's what happens when you listen to the voice that says no. You keep breaking things down into small parts. And you learn much, much more slowly. But if you just say yes all the time, then you end up writing the whole story really quickly. And, at first your story might not be very good, but you can redraft it, you get another go, and you can get 3 or 4 more goes, or you can write 3 or 4 different stories. And every single time, you get better. Okay, the final thing that I was going to teach you was how to write a description or a story, and that was point 7. Well, if we go back to what I've just read, I've called it a story. It's got a beginning and a middle and an end. But how long did it take? So I've got my main character munching on Skittles. Noah comes up, says one thing, smashes him with 1 punch. Main character returns 1 punch. Noah's laid out. Main character looks at Noah's girlfriend, Estella, who's eating Skittles. Now, how long does that take? That takes no longer than 10 seconds of time. And so if this is a description question, that bit of writing will also qualify as description. It's only 10 seconds of time. Because it's only 10 seconds of time, the examiner can easily say, oh yeah, that's not a story, it is a description. But if it's part of the story question, then the examiner is going to say, oh, that only takes 10 seconds, but it's got a beginning, it's got a middle, it's got an end, I'm going to call it a story. And because my story started with whatever I associated in the picture, I know that it's going to be descriptive. So it's going to have loads of descriptive techniques in it. And I'm going to get the marks for my description if it's the description question. And equally, I'll get the marks for that writing if it's the story question. So I obviously think this has been amazingly helpful, but what do I know? I'm a teacher and I'm not in the mind of a 15 or 16-year-old student. So please post me some comments below which tell me if this helped, if you can think of better ways of me teaching it. I would love to receive stories that you have written. I would love to make videos about them. Post them in comments below, or you can email me at my email address, which is appearing on your screen right now. Thank you very much for watching. Why not subscribe and make sure you get the very top grades that you want. I hope to see you soon on my channel.